Torah portion for today. We're up to Vayishlach, and we are in the 5th reading of Vayishlach. Yaakov is on his way, traveling from Lavan, from Haran, from his uncle Lavan's house, back to his parents' house in the land of Canaan. He already met Esav, they parted ways. Now they arrived to the outskirts of a city called Shechem. He bought a plot of land and they named it Sukkot, and they lived there for a little while. They settled there for a little while. And now a story is going to take place with this city that they're living in the outskirts of, the city of Shechem. It's a big story. It's a terrible story. It includes a lot of pain. And we're going to try to understand this story. So we're going to read all the verses inside. And what I'm going to try to do today is actually show in the words of the Torah where we see the additional details or explanations that are not in the written Torah. But I'm not going to bring the names of the commentaries that bring the information to us. I'm just going to share what they add to the story and how they find it in the words of the Torah itself. And we're dealing with a few very big questions. So you can kind of keep these questions in mind as we go along, and they will be answered. I'm not going to ask the questions probably during the story, but there are certain questions to keep in mind, which is number one, what are the rabbis telling us about Dina? What does the Torah tell us about Dina? Is there any kind of judgment about her? What does God want us to know about who Dina was? Good, righteous, or was she up to mischief and trouble? That's one of the questions we're going to look at. Another huge question that we're going to look at is, was Levi and Shimon and Levi's response, what was their response about? Was it about revenge? I'm going to tell you right now, the answer is no, and we're going to see it in the words of the verses. Also, there's a big misconception about Shimon and Levi that their father got angry at them and that they got punished. So I want to disabuse us of that myth. We'll see in the story that Yaakov was not angry at them. Later, many years later, he curses their anger, but he does never in the entire Torah does he curse their actions. Does he get angry about their actions? And they don't get punished for their actions. So that's an important thing to keep in mind when we look at the story. What did Shimon and Levi do, and what is our attitude toward them for what they did? So those are the two very, very big questions, and then we'll have a few other questions that get answered along the way. And with that in mind, let's jump in to the Torah portion for today. It's probably going to take us a little longer than we usually spend on the Torah portion. Usually we spend like 5 to 10 minutes on it. I don't know how long this is going to take. I hope that is okay because it's a big topic. And we really, I think that a lot of people really wanted this whole topic dealt with thoroughly and clearly. And okay. Bereshit chapter 34. Dina, the daughter of Leah, whom Leah had borne to Yaakov, went out to observe the girls of the region. We have a question about this. Why does this tell us Dina was the daughter of Leah? Don't we know she's the daughter of Leah? So let's look at Rashi. The daughter of Leah, and not the daughter of Yaakov. However, it's because of her going out that she's called the daughter of Leah. For she too had a propensity for going out. As it says, Leah went out to greet him. Regarding her, they formulated the proverb, like mother, like daughter. So why is Dina called the daughter of Leah? Because she exhibited a trait that Leah exhibits, the outgoingness trait, the extroverted trait, the going out trait. Is this a good thing? Or is this not a good thing? When you say like mother, like daughter, what is this telling us about both the mother and the daughter? Let's take a look at Leah's instance of going out and seeing, well, did she go out for something good or did she go out for something not good? What is this telling us about being outgoing like Dina and like Leah? So you'll notice here when she went out, this is referring to chapter 30, verse 16, just 3.5 chapters ago. Let's go there. Which story are we in, right? The going out is going to be in verse 16. Leah went out toward him. But let's look at the story. The story was, it's a story when Reuven went and he found dudaim in the field and he brought them to Leah, his mother. And Rachel wanted the dudaim. She wanted these jasmine or these fertility plants. And so they made an exchange. Right? Rachel said, hey, can you give me your son's dudaim? And Leah said, whoa, you have taken my husband or my husband's attention, primary attention and affection. Are you going to take my son's dudaim as well? And so Rachel said, hey, let's make a little exchange. You will sleep with Yaakov tonight as payment for your son's dudaim. Is this a good thing or is this not a good thing? Is it a good thing that let's take a look at what Leah does, right? When Yaakov came from the field that evening, Leah came forth toward him. She said, you should come to me, because I've hired you with my son's dudaim. And he slept with her on that night. So is her going out, right? She came out to the field to tell Yaakov, you got to be with me. Is this going out a good thing or not a good thing? Is it against modesty? Is she being indulgent here? Is this about wanting attention, wanting affection? Because all that wouldn't seem to be so good. What does the verse tell us? What does God tell us about her going out? God hearkened to Leah. He listened to her. And she conceived and bore Yaakov a fifth son. What did God hear? What is God going to testify to us about Leah's going out? She desired and was seeking means to increase the number of tribes. Her motives were beyond pure. They were righteous. They were super righteous. She wanted to bring more holy souls to the world who would continue the Jewish nation. So Leah's going out was, as we say in Hebrew, l'shem shamayim, was for God. She wanted to bring more tribes. God witnessed this, and he gave her a reward, which is that she received what she desired to birth another tribe. Leah's going out, was it good? Was it not good? It was beyond good. It was holy. It was in desire to do God's will. So now Dina goes out, and Rashi testifies that her going out is the same way as her mother went out. Just like Leah had a propensity of going out for good, for holiness, to increase the numbers of tribe, to increase God's name in the world, Leah went, regarding Dina, like mother, like daughter, she too goes out for a holy purpose. And we learn from this that she went to observe the daughters of the land, meaning she went to not just observe them, but to listen to what is it that they're talking about and to see how she can influence them to learn about God. She was outgoing. She was like a shlucha, a rebbitzin. She wanted to share the word of God with everybody. But something really painful happens to her. Shechem, the son of Hamor the Chivite, who was the chief of the region, saw her. He took her and he raped her and abused her. Who is this Shechem? You got this whole city called Shechem. Shechem is the prince of Shechem. The king is called Hamor the Chivite. He has a son, Shechem. Shechem is the prince, a young man. And he, as we see over here, and as we're going to continue to see throughout this story, is a terrible, evil person. He sees a young woman. She is someone that he gets curious about, so he just takes her. And not only does he rape her, but he abuses her, meaning it's not like he just like seduced her and then was with her. No, he raped her and abused her in many different ways. And we also learned later on that he abused her mentally as well, telling her, your father doesn't have that much. Look at how much your father spent on this small plot of land. I will marry you, and I'll thereby you will thereby acquire the city with all its fields. He's trying to manipulate her to stay with him. So after he rapes her, he became attached to Yaakov's daughter, Dina. He loved the girl. Now, you may miss this as insignificant, meaning, okay, what does this tell us? What the commentaries explain to us and what we see here in these, because of his behavior, is this testifies to Dina's power of influence. When he took her, saw her, and raped her and abused her, he wasn't planning on keeping her. He did this to women all the time. She was not his first victim. This is just his way of life. But suddenly something weird happened. This one he became attached to, so much so that he spoke to his father and he said, "Get me this young girl as a wife." He became so attached to her, he actually saw, oh my goodness, this is a very special person. I feel so attached to her. I just want her to be in my life for the rest of my life. And this testifies to that Dina's outgoing nature, her nature of power of influence over others. She was a very, very special young woman. And even at this terribly young age, she already had the power to win people's hearts and influence them. By the way, the reason why it's so important to talk about, one of the reasons it's so important to talk about is because earlier on, Yaakov hid her in a box so that she should not fall into the hands of Esav. But here we see testimony that she really may have returned Esav's heart to God. She just had a tremendous power of influence. Okay, so let's see what happens next. Shechem spoke to his father Hamor as follows, says, "Get me this young girl as a wife." Now meanwhile, back at the ranch, back in Yaakov's plot of land, he heard that Shechem had defiled his daughter Dina. What is he going to do about it? Is he going to storm the palace and demand to have her back? No, he knows that on his own, alone, it probably will not lead to her rescue. He won't be able to bring her. His sons were in the field with his livestock, so Yaakov held his peace until they arrived. He wanted to convene with his sons and see, how can we actually do this smartly? How can we actually get our daughter out of this awful situation? Meanwhile, Shechem's father Hamor went out to Yaakov to speak with him. And this tells us everything we need to know about the prince, Shechem, and his father, Hamor. God forbid, if anyone's child came to their father and said, "Hey, look, I just, abused this young woman," or even if he lies and says, "I seduced this young woman," considering that Dina's age at the time and that she was being held in the palace against her will, any proper father, what should the response have been? Punish your kid, give him a talking to, tell him to release the girl right away? Well, that's not what Hamor did. So we learned a lot about Hamor here. What does he do? Yes, my son, whatever Shechem wanted, Hamor was right there, willing and running to do his will. So Shechem is not raised in a good place, and at the minimum, and even worse than that, like his father is an accomplice to his crime. Yaakov's sons returned from the field when they heard what Shechem had done to Dina. The men became aggrieved and deeply incensed. Shechem had committed an outrage because an outrage had been done with Yisrael by raping Yaakov's daughter. Such a thing was considered taboo. So it seems like we have a lot of repetitions in this verse, but there are no repetitions. Every word is telling us something important. First of all, the different feelings of aggrieved and deeply incensed. I'm just going to go to the Hebrew because sometimes the English just is a little extra. Okay. The yis atzvu in Hebrew means sad. They were saddened. They hurt. They felt their sister's pain. But then, does sadness actually make us do anything? Does it move us to action? It doesn't. On the contrary, sadness sometimes can make a person despair, can bring a person to be stuck. So the Torah tells us that they moved from the sadness to Vayichar lehem ma'od, they moved on to a great anger, to a great righteous indignation. Anger is a place that we act from. Not anger in the way of temper and loss of control. That is not what we're talking about. We're talking about a sense that something wrong happened here and justice has to be done. It needs to be fixed. So they move on to indignation. What were they indignant about? Several things. First of all, how can anyone do this to their holy family? Is our family vulnerable to being attacked? Well, if that's the case, then we need to fix that. But more so, there's something wrong with the attackers themselves did something that in general is morally reprehensible and is not allowed even on their own playing field. Why was such a thing, lo yaseh, such a thing is something that was never supposed to happen, never supposed to be done. No one is supposed to rape anyone, meaning not just according to their moral code, but according to the world's moral code, the world at that time. Such a thing was considered taboo, to violate virgins, for even the nations of the world restricted themselves from immoral relationships as a result of the flood. After the flood, the nations made an agreement with each other that they would no longer rape or take women against their will. You don't violate young maidens. This was an agreement that all the nations had with each other, which means that they had committed not just a hurtful offense against Yaakov's family, but they actually committed a legal crime. And why are they so incensed? Because now the whole city is held accountable because no one is punishing this prince. No one is punishing the king. Everyone's beholden to them. There's no outrage about it in Shechem, right? The king and the prince, they're coming to negotiate about this. What else? They return from the field. They're outraged about what's happening after first and foremost feeling the pain of what had happened to their sister. So we also see that they're caring and they're deeply bonded and connected to Dina and protective over her. And now Hamor, the king, speaks with them saying, "My son Shechem deeply desires your daughter. I implore you, give her to him in marriage." Not only that, they make the deal bigger. But first of all, I just want to show you something. This is all talk so far. Dina was not handed back to Yaakov and his family. We see that a little bit further where they reply and they say, if you can't fulfill our conditions, sorry, 1 second. If you do not heed us and do what we say, then we will take our sister and we will depart. Why am I jumping ahead a little bit? Because I want to show you that with all of this conversation going on, here, Dina is held in the palace, held hostage. She's not given back to her family after the terrible things that she suffered. They left her in their hands, did not return her to her family, and they go out there to do a whole bunch of negotiation. So Dina is still held prisoner and she's in danger. So what does Hamor ask for? He says, give us Dina, and even more than that, intermarry with us. Give us your daughters and take our daughters for yourself. You will live among us. The land will be open before you. You may settle it, trade in it, acquire holdings in it. And, okay, so just a tiny little thing to keep in mind here. They're making the deal sound good to the family of Yaakov, right? They're saying, it's all up to you. Like, you will give us your daughters, like you'll give us whichever ones you want, and then you will take our daughters for yourselves. You will choose whomever you want. They make this deal sound really good. Then Shechem says to her father and brothers. Let me find favor in your eyes. Whatever you tell me to give, I will give. Demand an exceedingly high figure for the bridal contract and for gifts, and I'll give you as much as you tell me. Just give me this girl as a wife. So he rudely speaks up while his father is trying to have this negotiation. Okay, so Yaakov's children see who they're dealing with here. A very rude prince who speaks instead of his father or before his father. People who are still holding their daughter. What are they going to do? How are they going to get Dina out of this? They don't want Dina to be held captive there and to be married to Shechem. What do? How do they get her out? They realize that they're dealing with very sneaky people and they need to deal smartly with these people. So when Yaakov's sons replied to Shechem and his father Hamor, they spoke cunningly. What does cunningly? Bemirma, hiding something. What does Rashi tell us? It means bechokhma, with wisdom. Smartly, sharply. They had a plan. Why? Because he had defiled their sister Dina. They saw, we need a plan here. This is not going to work by just saying, hey, can you please give us Dina back? Would you be so kind and just like be nice guys? They know that's not going to work. They need a plan and they need to do this smartly. So what do they tell them? They said, hey, listen, we can't do this thing to give our sister to an uncircumcised man, for that would be a disgrace to us. Therefore, we will give our assent only on this condition, that you be like us and every male among you be circumcised. Meaning, what is their plan? Their plan is to make such an outrageous ask that there's no way that it could possibly be fulfilled. That is plan A. Not only do they have to be circumcised, but if they tell their entire city to circumcise, there's no way that that's ever going to happen. Great. So they are pretending to cooperate, but meanwhile, the condition is too big. Shechem and Hamor will think of it from every angle. They won't be able to accomplish it. None of their city people are going to listen to them. And if they ask the city people, then maybe the city people will kill them rather than be circumcised, because that's just so ridiculous. And then they'll get Dina back. Perfect. Excellent plan. But what ends up happening? Oh, sorry, they continue, we'll live together and become one nation, right? But if you do not heed us and circumcise yourselves, we'll take our sister, our father's daughter, and we'll depart. Simple. Excellent. Perfect plan. But what happens? Plot twist. Their terms were acceptable to Hamor and Shechem, Hamor's son. The young man did not even delay in carrying out this thing, since he desired Yaakov's daughter, and he was the most respected person in his father's household. So Hamor came with his son Shechem to the gate of their city, and they spoke to all the men of their city. What do they do with the men of the city? Now, they present it sneakily as tempting as possible to the people of their city. They say, hey, look, there are these people who live in the fields around us. These men are fully at peace with us. Let them live in the land and trade in it, for the land has ample room for them. Does it say they will take our daughters and they will give us theirs? No. They now turn the conditions around. They say, we will take their daughters as wives. We will give our daughters to them, whichever ones we want. Notice Rashi says that they switched it up here. Sorry, maybe it says that a little bit later or earlier. But in order for us to have this amazing utopia of living peacefully with this other powerful nation, the children of Yaakov, we need to follow one condition. With one condition will these men consent to live with us and become one nation, that every male among us be circumcised just as they are circumcised. After all, their livestock, their possessions, all their animals will become ours. Let's agree to their condition and they will live among us. So they persuade them that the temporary pain of circumcision will be nothing because of the reward. We're basically going to conquer this whole other nation, the nation of Jacob, for this little price. All the people who come out to the gate of the city heeded Hamor and his son Shechem, and all the males who came out to the gate of the city had themselves circumcised. What are Shimon and Levi going to do now? Their sister is still in danger. They must get her out of that palace, out of the abuser's hands. On the third day after the circumcision, when the Chivites were in pain, two of Yaakov's sons, Shimon and Levi, Dina's brothers, each took up his sword. They fell upon the city confidently and killed every male, and they also killed Hamor and his son Shechem by the sword, and they took Dina from Shechem's house and left. Meaning, what was in their way in order to take Dina from Shechem's house? Well, of course, they had to kill Shechem, who was not going to allow it. They had to kill Hamor, who was protecting Shechem, but they also had to kill all the men who were protecting their king and their prince, meaning they could not get to the palace. They could not get to Dina. The entire city had come out to protect their prince and their king, and they could not get through until every single man was killed. Which is why you see that Hamor and Shechem were killed last. They couldn't even get to Shechem and Hamor until they had killed the other men. Why were they so confident that they would be able to kill every man? First of all, because of the pain of the circumcision, but also they were confident in the power of their elder, in the power of Yaakov's merit. They knew that they were going to do something righteous, something important, something that is 100% necessary. Why? Because they're Dina's brothers. They risked their lives for her. That's why they're specifically called her brothers over here. And then once they took Dina, there's a huge problem. What are we going to do now with everything that is left in the city? Women and children, you have to remember, women and children back then without husbands are completely vulnerable. They cannot fend for themselves. They cannot survive. These are the times when you had to have a hunter outside of the home. You had to have a provider, or else the woman would die and the children would die. And what do you do with all this stuff that's now left there? And because stuff is living beings, cattle, donkeys, the animals are going to die without men to take care of them. So they take the flocks, the cattle, the donkeys, whatever's left in the city and the field. They took the money and captured all the children and the women folk. They brought everything back into their camp. And what ends up happening with these women, the women and the children, they ended up bringing them, absorbing them into Yaakov's camp and teaching them the ways of God. And now, what is Yaakov's reaction? Yaakov says to Shimon and Levi, "You've taken away my peace of mind." What does this mean? Does this mean I'm angry at you? Does it mean you did something wrong? He said, no, we now have another problem. What is his reaction, right? Is Yaakov's reaction, you have done something wrong? No, it doesn't say that anywhere. He says, guys, we have another problem. You've taken away my peace of mind by making me odious among the local inhabitants, the Canaanites and the Perizzites. I have only a few people on my side, and if all these other nations who are around us, the Canaanites and the Perizzites, if they band together against me to attack me, I and my family will be wiped out. So Yaakov has a response, but is his response a rebuke or a criticism? Absolutely not. The same way he consulted them about Dina, the first problem, Dina being taken, he now consults them about another problem. He says, guys, you've just murdered this whole city. Now all the other nations are going to attack us. What do Shimon and Levi reply? Should we have treated our sister like an abandoned woman, by a woman not protected by her family? And what happens? Yaakov is silent. We don't hear him respond to anything else. Meaning, what do Shimon and Levi do? They say, you're worried that they're going to attack us? What should we have done when we were already attacked? This was not some kind of vengeful war. This was protection. This was in order to save our sister, meaning you've already been attacked. This problem was already a problem for you because they took our sister. They attacked our sister. We literally simply did what we had to so that no child will be left behind. And that's it. That's the end of that conversation. So what happens now? They continue to travel. Yaakov asks them to remove all the idols from their possession because they're going to pray to Hashem. They're going to build an altar. And what happens? They get rid of all the idols in their possession. And what happens? They set out. And did Yaakov's fear come true that they'd be attacked? Look at verse number 5. The dread of God fell upon the inhabitants of the surrounding cities, and they did not pursue Yaakov or his sons, which means if someone comes and attacks a Jew, and the Jewish nation bands to save the Jew, we have nothing to fear. We have nothing to be afraid of. We are not supposed to be afraid of our publicity or our popularity or what are the other nations going to do? We don't have to be afraid. When a Jew is in danger, we save them. And what's a proportional response? Whatever it will take to save them. They tried in a way of peace. They tried to say, give them crazy conditions like, circumcise yourselves. Peace didn't help. Their sister wasn't coming back. She wasn't being given back to them. And so they went to recapture her. They couldn't get to the king. They couldn't get to the prince. They had to kill every person who was standing in their way between themselves and their sister. And that's exactly what they did. And what was God's response? God 100% backed them up and then protected them when they had to move forward. I hope the implications of this story are clear. If anyone has any questions of how you deal with an enemy of Israel when they come and harm one of Israel. And so Yaakov comes to, that's the end of the Dina story, and we'll take all questions about that. I'll just tell you real quick that what happens next is that they arrive to Beis Kel and build an altar there, and they receive news of Devorah's death, and she was buried there in Beis Kel, but they also received another very sad news that Rivka, Yaakov's mother, had passed away. And then God appears to Yaakov and blesses him, confirming the blessing that Esav's angel had given him prior, that you will no longer just be called by the name Yaakov, but you'll be called by the name Yisrael. And God now gives him a blessing that a nation will be born to him and also a community of nations. So another nation, meaning Benjamin is going to be born, and a community of nations, 2 nations, that one day in the future, 2 more tribes are going to be born, the tribe of Manasseh and Ephraim, Yosef's children. They're going to become tribes as well. That is the reading for today. And I hope it's okay if we take questions about the story before we move on to the Tanya and Hayom Yom, because this is such an important story. It's like one of the stories that just talks as a woman and as a Jew and as a woman who's vulnerable for being a woman and a Jew. This talks so much to my heart, and I hope it talks to all of your hearts. And so let's really, if anyone has any questions or comments, let's do that now. Leah, go ahead.
Wow. I'm so blown away. It was amazing. It was so gripping. I felt like I was watching a movie almost. It was unbelievable. A couple of things that really came to mind just this morning, because I'm kind of dealing with a legal issue where I feel like I've been, it's way too complicated to share, but where I have felt like I've been wronged, and I finally got an attorney who said, yes, this needs to be corrected, and it's a big deal, and it's not something I wish on anyone. But what he keeps telling me is if you can just hang in there and recognize that your anger and your resentment can actually be for good. And then this morning, this came to me just randomly from Martin Luther King Jr. Justice at its best is love, correcting everything that stands against love.
Love.
Correcting everything that stands against love. So this, I'm not seeing where the only place in the story of Dina that I'm seeing love is correcting everything is that their love for Dina is so strong.
Yeah, that's very dangerous. To think that this is motivated by love alone is very dangerous, meaning he's partially correct, not completely correct.
Okay.
Because love is an emotion. And if love is misdirected, this can go horribly wrong. Shimon and Levi don't do this just out of love. They do it because they know it's what God needs them to do. Meaning it's for love, but it's mostly for justice. Justice is the important thing, not love.
Okay.
Justice and righteousness, meaning doing that which is objectively right. Love is subjective. I hope that love is not what motivates us to do certain things.
Well, this is really profound because all of a sudden I thought about the war, what's happening in Israel, and how there have had to be decisions made that are not very pleasant. And a lot of people have been very, very divisive about this in terms of what has happened. But in order to, for example, deal with the hostages, there had to have been something to occur to get to them because
Right.
so anyway, I
That's exactly right. Meaning people say, is it a proportionate response? The question is, what will get them out?
right.
What will get them out? That's how you judge proportionate. When you judge one for one, you're just being evil. It's revenge. It's not justice. It's not a response. It's revenge. Yeah, it is a response, but it's a vengeful response. Right here, it's not about revenge. It's about how do you bring safety to the family of Israel.
Well, this was profound for me because I'm really going to spend some time thinking about this in terms of I have to do a lot of work for the attorney answering questions because this may go, in front of a court of law. And I every day I have to set my mindset as to why am I doing this?
Hmm.
Who is this benefiting? And is this out of revenge? Do you know what I'm saying? But
Yes.
so thank you. I mean, I don't even know where to go with this, but it opened a door that I didn't even know was there. Thank you.
Yeah, and there's a lot more to say about that in terms of what should motivate us when we're, you know, um, make sure that you're keeping God at the center of it in terms of right and wrong. When somebody steals or when somebody hurts somebody else, then, they need to be brought to justice. That's
Mhm.
evil needs to be responded to appropriately. Goodness has to be protected appropriately. That should hopefully be a good compass.
And when and for me, when it affects others who cannot speak up, or
100%. Good needs to be protected and evil needs to be fought against. Yes.
right. So I do what I can do.
Yeah.
Thank
Those others are the good that you're protecting.
thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Yisraela?
So, first of all, it was so clear that obviously there is no question, but I do have a comment, and that is that since it's a very heavy story, every time I read the story, it's just so heavy. To hear what you explained, what you said was so crystal clear, and you could feel this strength in what you were teaching further to us. I think most of us probably agree that the way you say it, the way you explain with such a strength and such a clearness, it's a wonderful, it's amazing. I have to really say thank you.
Thank you so much. And I just want to say, Yisraela, that if you want to know which commentaries fill in the details, I could share with you a class from that Mendel Kaplan gave. He's a rabbi in Toronto. He has every single commentary open in front of him, so you can every single source is there. And the Rebbe is the one who teaches us that about Leah and Dina, that it was a good thing to be outgoing, and that Jewish women should learn from this to use their outgoingness for God, just like Dina and Leah used it for God. So I can share those resources with you so that you understand where my confidence comes from, knowing that this is passed down to us by our holy sages.
Absolutely. And it's timeless, it's relevant even nowadays. It's totally relevant. So please do, let me just, if you can write it down, I'll look for it.
Excellent. Hannah?
Thank you so much. So I just want a little bit more clarity. I mean, I do understand, of course, this particular, but the anger portion, okay, even though the anger was used for the good, obviously, in this case, and but
okay, can I jump in for a second?
yeah, please, yeah.
We need to understand the difference between anger and losing one's temper. They're not the same thing. Today, it's rare that someone gets angry the way the Torah describes anger. Today, it's usually, I've been wrong, someone hurt me, or even just a loss of temper, like, I don't like the way that was, and then I yell and scream about it. In its source, every single attribute has to have good and also has bad, right? So in its source, anger means I am seeing something that isn't right. Right? So I'm seeing something that isn't right is neutral. It could be, now what am I going to do with it? Is this going to go well, or is this going to go badly? I see something that isn't right is the anger that Yaakov and all tzaddikim, right? When it's anger, when God is angry, his nostrils flare. What that means is I see something isn't right. If you set out to fix it the way Shimon and Levi did, the way Moshe did, the way God did, perfect. That anger, seeing something isn't right, led to something good. If it leads to you just getting angry, having a feeling, being annoyed and upset, then that kind of anger should we never need that in our lives. And our sages come out and say, like, a person should distance themselves very, very far away from anger. Anger, the feeling. But when these holy people, the way I understand it is, or when God expresses anger, it's something isn't right, an observation that something isn't right. And then, read it inside and you see, what they end up doing with it, which is fixing it.
I still find this to be a very dangerous ground for regular folks. Like this is a phenomenal story to learn from. But at the same time, even if we base our intellectual opinion based on Torah values, in this day and age, it might not necessarily be.
Yeah. So Hannah, here's the next thing. Yaakov Avinu and the Torah completely agrees with you, which is why later when Yaakov is giving the blessings to the tribes, he curses the anger of Shimon and Levi, because he says people need to know that anger is very dangerous. So you're right, and Torah agrees with you. We should not copy their anger. We should copy what they do to make things right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Matla Rachel?
Thank you, Itty. I feel like for me, this lesson in Torah is missing something. We're not told about Dina's feelings. We're told about her brother being angry. We're told about, her father being upset, but we're not told about what she feels, what happens to her as a result of this um, rape, as a result of this assault. It's like just, it's like she's the subject matter of the story, but it's like she disappears. And I want to know more about how she deals with this. I mean, getting over rape is not easy.
Right. Right. And it's very interesting because I feel like her voice not being openly discussed here in the Torah comes back to the core of, in general, masculinity and femininity and what they are, and the the energies of the two. I don't know if you've been in Rifki's class on the moon versus the sun. It's essential. Anyone who wants to deeply understand the masculine and the feminine must listen to Rifki Kaplan's class on the moon, because without that, we have such a skewed way of viewing life. Not skewed, I mean, we just have so many blanks, so many gaps in our understanding of life that it's really hard to understand like anything that I'm going to say next. So I'll just give you a tiny little like title, I guess. Masculinity is like the sun. It's bright, it's open, it's revealed. The power of the feminine is like the moon. It shines in the darkness. It lights up the darkness. But that's also where there's more mystery, where there's more hiddenness, where the answers are not shining bright like the sun. The answers need to be pulled out. The answers need to be sought. And it kind of is, I mean, we do understand it a little bit on an intuitive level. Men are out there. They're the chasers. And women, you really do need to pull her out. You need to seduce her. I mean, in an ideal world, you should feel like you want to seduce a woman, like you want to pull her out of yourself, that you want to bring her closer to you. When things are like that, it's beautiful. It's not, I mean, we live in 2025, the world's upside down. Like, what can I say? Like, maybe there are young people here who have no idea what I'm even talking about. But there is a beauty when things are the way they're supposed to be, where men are out there chasing, and where a woman is like, come get me. I'm not going to just place myself all over the pages of the Bible. Come find me. My story is here, but I'm sorry, I feel private about this. Like, I don't want you to just write it for everyone to just, look at and observe and poke around and see. So it's true that her story is hidden. And yet it was passed down to us. Different details of it were passed down to us that tell us quite a bit about her perspective and her experience. So it's not in the words of the revealed Torah, but it was handed to us in this, secret way that we then need to come and pull out and find. One of the things that we learn is that, and we learn it from a different place in the written Torah, when the 70 children of the 70 family members of Yaakov come down to Egypt, there's this person who's kind of unaccounted for. It says Shaul, the son of the Canaanite. Okay, so they're going down to Egypt. There's 70 of them. The children of Reuven, the children of Shimon, the children of Levi. And suddenly you've got this guy, Shaul, the son of the Canaanite. Who is that? Who is that? And then we're taught that Canaanite refers to Dina. And this was her son that she had with Shimon because of the Canaanite being Shechem. What's the story there? Why does Dina have a child with Shimon? That's not usual that they should their brother and sister. They weren't given yet these laws, but still they kept the whole Torah. What's happening here? Why is Shimon having a child with Dina? So we learn the backstory that when Shimon and Levi finally break into the palace and want to rescue Dina, she doesn't want to come with them. And what's the reason that she gives that she doesn't want to come with him? She says, because now no one will marry me. That tells us so much about her. Meaning, what was her pain? What was her problem? What hurt her? Obviously, we know that she had the physical pain and torment and all that. Like, we know, we're not stupid. Like, we're women. We know that she underwent terrible things. But did she have trauma? Meaning, did she get stuck there and relive it again and again? What was her fear? What was her concern? Her concern remained pure like the day she was born, which was, I want to be a Jewish woman who brings Jewish children to the world. I know my mission. I know why I'm here in this world, and I want to fulfill my mission. I want to be a mother in Israel. But now, after what happened to me, no one's going to want to marry me. I'm not good enough. I'm broken. I'm damaged. What is my life worth if I can't bring children to the world? So rather than being traumatized in the way of saying, I never want to experience the pain that I just experienced, I don't want any man to ever touch me, I am just going to curl up in the fetal position and hide from the world, she bounced back so quickly. She said, wait, am I still worthy of being part of the Jewish nation and bringing Jewish children to the world? Who's going to marry me? Is anyone going to marry me? And Shimon makes this incredible sacrifice and says, I'm going to be with you. I'm going to take care of you till the end. I rescued you, and now I'm going to rescue you all the way to the end. I'll make sure that you can bring Jewish offspring to the world. Offspring, the descendants of Yisrael, of Yaakov. So this is one amazing thing that we know about Dina's story, that she just wanted to do her mission. She wanted to make her impact in the world. Another incredible thing we know about Dina, we find out about a generation later. Yosef is in Egypt. And he was freed from slavery, from Potiphar, from being the servant for Potiphar. He leaves the prison that he was imprisoned in, and now he becomes second to the king. And he's being paraded around the entire Egypt to celebrate his coronation as second to the king. And he is admired, and everyone is throwing all these presents at his feet. And suddenly a gift lands in his lap. Something that, there's this parade, right? And the men and the women, everyone's throwing these gifts at him. And this chain falls into his lap. It's a gold chain that says on it, from the household of Jacob, from the household of Yaakov. And he looks around and he says, by the way, this is probably what Cinderella is based on. I'm just going to say, if you got to think about it, right? I mean, maybe, I don't know. We'll have to ask them. But anyway, this chain falls into his lap. And he says, whose is this? I must find whose chain this is, because it has Hebrew words on it. I'm in Egypt, in the middle of Egypt. How do I have a necklace that says Hebrew words? Household of Jacob, household of Yaakov. And he finds out whose necklace this is. It's this young woman named Osnat, who is an orphan baby, who was raised in the household of Potiphar, and no one knows where she came from. And yet, when she arrived, she had this chain around her neck. It was the only thing that was hers, which is why when this handsome prince was second to the king was paraded around, it's the only thing she could throw at him, because it was the only thing that was hers. So he finds her. She is from the household of Yaakov. Who is she? She was the daughter that was born from Dina and Shechem when Shechem abused her. She actually became pregnant from that. And she had this baby Osnat, who the angels then carried down to Egypt to be raised as a wife for Yosef. What does this tell us about Dina? We have to go one step further to the children that Yosef and Osnat raised in Egypt. To raise holy children in Israel, no big deal. It's a holy land. I mean, back then, when you're in the family of Yaakov, right? It's a holy land, and everyone's studying Torah with Yaakov, and it's great. You come out, you're the 12 tribes, everything's great. How do you raise holy, righteous children in exile in Egypt? How do you raise holy, wonderful, refined Torah students, these bright lights? How do you raise them in Egypt, which is the darkest place of exile, the darkest spiritual place of immorality? How do you raise such holy kids? How do you fight against all the darkness and raise these holy kids, right? What gives the parents a strength? And the answer is the darkness they went through gives them the generational strength they need to raise light in an environment of darkness. Osnat got such strength from her mother, Dina. Dina went through such darkness and she fought and overcame. So she now has the strength in her DNA. She gives it to Osnat. Osnat now has the strength to raise her children, Menashe and Ephraim, to be a light in the greatest darkness. And then when Yaakov meets these two children, Menashe and Ephraim, he recognizes their tremendous light and he says, you're not just grandchildren, you're like my children. You have the light that is shining so brightly as if you were raised in the brightest environment. So what do we know about Dina? Her overcoming this darkness gave her a superpower that she didn't have before fighting with this darkness. All the pain she went through, all the horrible abuse she went through, the darkness she went through, her using that and overcoming it and saying, I'm going to do the best. Like, I'm going to get over this and I'm going to be strong and I'm going to do God's will. This strength was passed down in her DNA to Osnat, who was then able to raise children in the darkest land to be bright lights.
Wow.
So that's a little bit that we know about Dina. Immediately after, what her concern was, and then what she passed down in her DNA.
That's incredible. That's totally amazing.
Yeah.
I had no idea that Osnat was. And as sad as it sounds when she said nobody's going to marry me, and then her brother, it's just so beautiful. And then the result of all of that is just really overwhelming. Thank you so much.
And I hope this gives strength to anyone who is raised in darkness or feels like they spent much of their life in darkness. That means that it's not a problem. It's a background for overcoming and saying, you know what, God, even though you tortured me in all these ways, like I'm going to overcome it. I'm going to find the light inside of me. Like I have to. Because that light, what you're now passing down to the people in your family, your children, your grandchildren, you're passing down things to them that they want to get from another mom who didn't go through that kind of darkness.